I'm going to go first because I've got to get it.
What's wrong with your boys, Gus?
Well, the big question for the Demons, everyone knows the problem. How do you fix it? And we've been talking about this, you and I, and another bloke that sat there for years before you got here, and we're still doing it. And that's, their problem and their inability to convert opportunity. But before I want to get to that, I want to pay tribute to the Collingwood Footy Club on the way they started, because they made this Melbourne team look something that they haven't for a long time, and that was timid. At the start of this game. Wow. I thought the first 40 minutes from Collingwood, they out-toughed Melbourne, and this is not an issue for them. They're not a weak side, they're not a poor side. They're a contested animal bunch of footballers, but by this stage, they were down 9 before you blinked your eye, and the superstars are the ones your eyes went to.
That starts in the centre, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and they came... It looked to me, and we were just sitting watching, it looked like Collingwood were at this furious, frenzied pace you needed to be for a final, and they caught Melbourne on the hop big time.
Does Max Gawn's number there make that even worse than what we've seen with the -9? Because without Max Gawn, with one player, and most of that would be aerial or... In clearance, but in general play, when the ball spreads, Collingwood must have been double figures above them.
This is a broad question, Gaz, started before you got the other stuff. Do they feel the pressure of having to win one at the MCG?
Maybe they do, Brent. I think that all those are open to interpretation until they win one. That's the bottom line. And that was an un-Melbourne-like start from those blokes. And it was a Collingwood side who were fizzed up. This is your biggest arch rival. It's 90,000 people. It's a big, massive final. And that level of intensity won't cut it against Carlton on Friday, whereas Collingwood's did. And in the end, they got rolling because this is what is in their DNA. But it was 40 minutes too late. Damage was done. They were chasing backside from that point on, and they just couldn't close the gap in the end.
Is this the advantage of a double chance where you get that heads up and you still go into your last 3 weeks?
Yeah, it is. And then they deal with the other bigger problem that's been there for a number of years. And their lack of return, these numbers are pretty staggering. And, you can interpret them any way you want, but I don't think you can get away. I'm just going to roll through them. 63 inside 50s for 23 shots at goal. So where it rates in relation to, comparisons is what interests me most. So 39 times. 39 forward-half intercepts, and they scored 1 goal 5 from it. That's the 5th worst ever in a final. So
19-4 last quarter inside 50.
These problems, it's forward-half return problems, and then the way they went in. So then you go, OK, there's the problem. Now, let's have a look at it. And it was just a predictability about the way they went forward. And this is against Howe, this is against Moore, this is against Murphy, and it became... In the end, it was repetitious to the point of boring. And, predictability for opposition defences is manna from heaven. Unpredictability, that is, they don't know where the ball's going, they don't know the angle that it's coming in, they don't know the depth that it's coming in, that becomes a real issue for a defence. And Melbourne didn't produce any of that. They didn't mix it up, they didn't create and work to make space for one another. The depth of delivery, look at these blokes short and the space in front. In the end... Then Collingwood know where it's going. And they ignore what's going on, and we'll get to what they need to do.
Do you think Collingwood were able to establish their defensive setup, though, guys? Once they established that match-winning lead, do you think that they were able to sort of get their numbers back there? Do you give some credit to Collingwood's defensive structure?
I do. They stood up beautifully, but they were given the greatest heads-up of all. They ran back defensively beautifully and went to the exact spot they knew where the footy was going. I'll show you 2, right? 2 that ended in marks. They only took 8 of all those 60-odd. And look at the kick. It's a sack. It's a floating sack that doesn't go where the Collingwood defence think it is, and he marks it, right? And then there's another one here. Just a hack around the corner that ends up dropping shorter than they anticipated, and he marks it. Don't go to the obvious place. Don't go to the same spot every single time. It was repetitious, and we saw this against the Giants. Remember back in that wet game? They were plus 25, and then we sat here and we showed...
up at Alice Springs, I think.
We showed edit after edit after edit. So that's the biggest issue for them, and they're going to have to deal with it.
Do you think if all those kicks just went along the ground, it'd be any worse?
Wouldn't worry me. I know it's ridiculous, and no one's got to that stage where they want to do it, but it wouldn't worry.
Hawthorn coached that through their... through their premiership run. Alistair Clarkson would coach ground balls into forward 50. Well, they did have Luke Bruce and Cyril Rioli and Buddy who were running around at the time.